The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're mine. They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. That's what it sounded like. Good, so you know who I am. Because then you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Watching us right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr. With me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everyone?
Tonight's show is going to be interesting. I've been hearing a lot about this particular subject, and it's a fun one. You know, tonight we're going to be talking about mermaid parties, and you might be asking, well, what the hell's a mermaid party? That actually sounds fun. You know, that sounds like a good time. But apparently it's not a good time at all. I'll run down what the story is here, and then we'll kind of suss it out a little bit and try to figure it out whether it's actually a real thing or not. So the story goes that this guy who was in Hollywood was starting to get popular and climb the ranks, so to speak, and get in with the good crowd and all that kind of stuff. So he gets an invite to a party, and it is a mermaid party. And he's pretty damn excited because there's some top A-list people that are going to be at this party. So he's stoked. He's thinking, this is it, man. This is my chance. So he's thinking a mermaid party is probably like some kind of theme party or something like that, right? So he goes to this thing, and he finds out it's a dinner party. They're going to sit down and they're going to have a meal. And there's not a whole lot of people there. It's a very select group, but it's some big names that are there. Okay, now, the person who told the story did not give the big names. They just said that they were big A-list names. So needless to say, probably the people you're thinking of, you know, you're talking people like a Tom Cruise, a Tom Hanks, those kind of people that are like top tier A-list stars that are also kind of involved with some hinky kind of shit. You know what I mean? They're not exactly clean as a whistle, so to speak. But he never gave names, so I don't know who was there. Back to the story. He's sitting down to eat, and they say they're going to have Mermaid for dinner. And he's kind of, you know, smirking about it and laughing it up because he thinks, you know, it's probably going to be some kind of other food that's just, you know, disguised to look like a mermaid, or maybe they're going to have like a big cake that's shaped like a mermaid and something like that, right? He thinks it's going to be BS. So they bring out this cart, this big cart, and it has a metal thing over top of it, like a cover, and they wheel it over to the table. So the guy lifts the lid off, and laying there is a cooked mermaid. And he's like, wait a minute, what the hell? This can't be real. This has got to be some kind of food that's not an actual mermaid. This is kind of ridiculous. But he's starting to doubt a little bit. So they start cutting into this thing. And everybody's getting a little piece, you know, a section of it. And it's sitting on his plate, and he's looking at it, and he's kind of poking at it, and he's like, this is some kind of meat, whatever it is. This is not a cake. I don't know what the hell's going on. This is getting too weird for me. So, you know, people start eating, and he decides he don't want any part of this. So he doesn't eat it. And he stands up to leave, and they said, where are you going? And he said, I don't want any part of this, man. I don't know what this is. This is weird as hell. I'm out of here. And they said, well, you're free to go if you want. But remember, you signed an NDA when you came in. So you're not allowed to say anything about what happens here tonight. And if you do, you'll pay for it. We're going to sue the shit out of you. Right? So he starts walking out of the dining room, and he's walking around, and he decides he's going to try to investigate and figure out what's going on because nobody walked with him. He's just alone. So he's kind of snooping around the house a little bit, moving down through the hallway, and he comes across a kitchen. So he kind of looks into the kitchen and he sees a big tank over against the wall. And according to him, inside that tank are a bunch of mermaids swimming around. And they're there to be eaten eventually, I guess. And they look at him like, help me, please. And he's kind of freaked out and he doesn't feel good about it. He's getting emotional and he's kind of like, oh man, I need to help these mermaids and all this. Well, about that time, the chef walks in and says, what the hell are you doing in my kitchen? And the guy's like, this is wrong. You got to let these things go. And the chef basically tells him to go screw himself and reminds him once again, don't forget you signed an NDA. So if you say anything about this, not only will we sue the hell out of you, but somebody's going to kill you. So then he kind of runs out of the kitchen and heads towards the front door, opens the front door, runs out, gets in his car, goes home, leaves, right? And supposedly he got in touch with a influencer on TikTok, is where this started, and told her the story and sent her a bunch of information about himself to prove that he was actually in Hollywood and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so that's the story. Now, in the original TikTok video, we never get the identity of the guy. We never get the identity of any of the A-list stars. We don't get the address of the place. We also don't get to look at any of the information that he sent to prove he is who he says he is. No information was shown. So we're just taking the word of this TikTok influencer that this guy even exists, that the story was ever even told to her, or that the story is real. Okay, now she is presenting it as if it is a real thing that happened and that he actually contacted her and sent her the proof and all this kind of stuff. But she never received any photographs of mermaids or any information like that. It was just information about his career. So she doesn't even really know if it's true. She just knows what this guy told her. So that's what we're working with here. That's the information we have. So I think to kind of get into this a little bit, we'll do what we always do. We'll try to figure out, is this real or is this bullshit? Okay, already you got bullshit alarm bells going off. Already. No real verifiable information in the video. No photographs, no proof whatsoever in the video. It's on TikTok, which is like the biggest platform for bullshit. Even bigger than YouTube. YouTube has a lot of bullshit on it. But TikTok's even worse. And you just have this person who does these kind of spooky story kind of things, who says that this person came to her and that's why she's telling this story. So already a lot of bullshit bells are ringing. Okay? Just want to be straight up and honest with you from the beginning. But let's look at the lore on mermaids. Let's see, could this even be a possible thing? Are mermaids a real thing, or are they just a fairy tale? Because if they're just a fairy tale, there's no way in hell they got some of them in a tank getting ready to eat them, right? So that's another question that needs to be answered here. So I think going back to the lore is the right move. So if we look at the lore on mermaids, there's a lot of it. A hell of a lot of it. It goes all the way from mermaids being beautiful, gorgeous, sexual beings who will enchant you and just make you overcome with lust and love to the point where you jump off the boat to be with them, and then they take you down underneath the water, drown you. Okay? That's part of the lore. Other lore calls them sirens, but they're the same thing. They sit there, they come up out of the water, they sing songs to people on ships, to sailors, to make them so overcome with love that they jump off the boat into the water. They take them under the water and they drown. Okay? You also have lore of mermaids that will lure you off the boat, drown you, and then eat you. So we're food for them in some of this lore. So one thing is in common with all of this. Mermaids aren't something to mess with. People took mermaids very, very seriously back in the day. when they were sailing all over the place. It was a real thing to them. And they warned about them and warned when we entered certain waters that was known to be populated by mermaids, you weren't even allowed to kind of go over to the railing at all on the ship. You had to try to stay buttoned up underneath so that you didn't get caught by these things, right? So they were really, really worried about mermaids at one time. So what that tells you is these things are not to be messed with. They're not like some wimpy little creature that you could just snag up in a fishing net and put in a tank. We're not catching tuna here. This is a dangerous, dangerous creature that has mystical and magical powers that can enchant you, take over your mind, and make you do things. Okay, that's no joke. That's not an easy thing to take a hold of and just put in a tank. So could somebody have caught them and kept them in a tank? Well, I imagine you could probably catch one if you somehow were able to protect yourself against their enchanting. And maybe you could get lucky and get one if you had enough people or something. But could you keep them in a tank where they're just freely swimming around? They're not like gagged and blindfolded and chained or anything. They're just hanging out in there swimming around. So what would stop them from enchanting you while you were in that kitchen? I mean, that's what you got to think of, right? So once again, another big ding, ding, ding bullshit bell is going off, because it would be damn near impossible to catch one, much less a bunch of them. And if you were lucky enough to catch them, it'd be damn near impossible to keep them unless you sedate them to where they're unconscious. And these things clearly were not unconscious in the story. They were swimming around. They were waving to the guy and trying to get him to help them. So that's not an unconscious creature. That's not a sedated creature. Okay, so that's another red flag, another bullshit bell going off. So are mermaids even real? Well, they talk about mermaids in the Bible. Okay, and I'm one of those guys that believes in the Bible. So if they talk about it in the Bible, then it's a real thing. We've seen it happen over and over and over again. A lot of places in the Bible where people and scholars would say, oh, that's not a real place, that's a made-up place. And then archaeologists end up finding it, like Sodom and Gomorrah. They found that. There's a lot of stuff like that in the Bible that has been proven true. Okay, Noah's Ark, the worldwide flood, it's been proven true scientifically that there was a worldwide flood that happened. We have the proof of it. Okay, and also from the Noah's Ark story, you have Noah's family, a very small group, who ended up repopulating the world after the flood. And that matches up with science. Because I've talked about on this show before the DNA studies that have proven that all of mankind and all of the animals on Earth all originated from either a single pair or a very small group at around the same time period. Okay? All of the genetic diversity that we have now can be traced back to that point. And it's the same point where there was a worldwide flood. Okay, so the science backs up the flood story as well. There's so many of these things in the Bible that have been proven true. So in my view, if they talk about mermaids in the Bible, and they talk about unicorns in the Bible, and they talk about dragons in the Bible, then that means that those things actually existed. Because why would they talk about them if they didn't exist? You see what I'm saying? At the time that these things were written, there wasn't like massive mythology about these creatures. That came after. Okay, so they're reporting on things that they actually saw and lived with. And when you're talking about unicorns and you're talking about dragons and mermaids, all three of those, there's a rich history of that in the lore all the way up to present day. Taking mermaids, like I was saying earlier, every seafaring nation had tales about mermaids. They were all called different things. Some were mermaids, some were sirens, some called them harpies. There was a lot of different tales of these things, pardon the pun, throughout history by a bunch of different cultures. Same thing with unicorns and the same thing with dragons. Pretty much every single civilization, every single culture on Earth has legends about these things. So that ought to be a very big clue that something existed that was known as a mermaid. Something existed that was known as a unicorn. Something existed that was known as a dragon, right? And it's not that far fetched to believe. You know, we got all kinds of weird ass creatures on this planet. And where mermaids might have come from is Genesis 6, when at the same time the giants were made. Giants came from angels and women mating, and their offspring were the giants. But it also says that they also mated with all kinds of animals. It talks about that in the Bible. So that is how you got like the Minotaur and the Centaur and the Satyr and all these different creatures, was them mating with different animals, and that was the offspring. So there's no reason mermaids couldn't be the same thing. It could be some large fish species like a tuna or something like that, something that's big that the angels mated with, and the offspring was a mermaid. You know, I know that sounds crazy, but it's biblical. So if that's the case, then they would absolutely be a supernatural creature. Because even though they are flesh and blood, they have powers that are above the natural order, just like giants did. Okay, and giants, when they died, that's what we know today as demons. They're spirits. Those were the spirits of the giants. Well, I propose maybe that since you have all kinds of different classes and strengths of demons, maybe when all of these creatures die that were the offspring, they become demonic spirits. And maybe that's why some are stronger than others. You know, so either way you cut it, a mermaid is not some weak little creature that's easily subdued, stored in a tank, and just used as food. I just don't see how that would be possible. So whether you believe mermaids are real or whether you believe mermaids are bullshit, in either scenario, if they're bullshit, there's no way they caught them and ate them, so the whole story would be bullshit anyway. If they are real, then that means that what the lore says about them is most likely real. So if that's the case, because the lore and the Bible are the only sources that we have that talk about the existence of mermaids. So any characteristics of that mermaid is going to come from the lore. Because if they were describing a real creature, then they would be describing what that creature can do, right? That makes sense. So if they are real and they've been documented throughout the lore, then that means that they're very, very strong, very dangerous creatures who are capable of enchanting you with a simple song, or even just looking at you and making you fall in love with them. So if that's the case, how in the world did anybody catch them? Not just one, but a bunch of them. And how in the world were they capable of storing them without being enchanted? And then if you look at the fact that if they are eating these things, then what kind of evil bastard does that to another sentient being? And what's that doing to them? Because this is a demonic entity, right? In its flesh form. What the hell is going to happen to you from eating that thing? That can't be good for you. I'm sure that's not going to be in the new food pyramid. You know, that's got to be bad news. So my ruling on it is I think most likely the story is bullshit because there's no proof. There's no real information given. It's an anonymous guy. We don't know his name. We don't know where the party was. We don't really have any real information. We just have to believe this TikToker when she says that, hey, this guy came to me and believe me, he proved to me who he was and that he was actually in Hollywood and all this stuff. So he's on the up and up. You know, we just have to take her word for it with zero proof. And then we have to believe a story that goes against all logic. There's no way to capture these things safely in numbers like that to eat them. There's no way to contain them long enough to eat them. Knowing they know they're in trouble, you think they're not going to be trying to do something about it? If they're looking at that guy and like, hey, please help me, why wouldn't they enchant him right there? Why would they let him run away when he could have possibly helped? And of course they would have tried. So the whole thing, it just stinks. It's a bunch of BS, in my opinion. I don't think the story's true. Now, with that being said, let me say that the people that were having these parties were the elites of Hollywood, right? These are the what you would call like the Illuminati people, the people that run things, right? They're a bunch of evil bastards who worship demons. So I have no doubt that they would do something like this if it was possible for them to do it. I could absolutely see the elites in Hollywood having some kind of like occultish like dinner party and bringing in the rarest, most dangerous food they could possibly get, which would be a mermaid, and paying tons and tons and tons of money for somebody to go out and catch one to bring back to them. It does not surprise me at all to hear something like that. Like, I would definitely say that that is exactly what they would try to do if it was possible. So I'm not saying that it would be a crazy idea that somebody would be eating a mermaid. I don't think it would be good for you. I think it's got to be bad because of what it is. But I could definitely see these snobby elite Hollywood people wanting to do that. That doesn't surprise me at all. Like, that fits. That tracks. That's the only part of this story that tracks. The rest of it just smells, man. The rest of it stinks. The rest of it, bullshit bells everywhere, red flags everywhere. I don't think it's a true story. But I think that that's the seed of truth in this story, is that those scumbags would absolutely try to do something like this. I wouldn't put it past them whatsoever. So that being said, I'm going to throw it to Old Boy, and I'm going to see what he thinks about the story. He lives out in LA, right by LA. So he's in that area. So maybe he's heard something about this where he lives. You know, he knows some people that are into movies and stuff like that. So maybe he's heard about it. So we'll find out from him, see what he has to say, and then I'll be back after he's done. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. I've heard about this story already. They were talking about it's already hit TikTok, so yeah, it's been exaggerated now. I've heard some of it already. It's probably bullshit. It's becoming exaggerated now. It's now every TikToker in the world is trying to get clad on it, trying to get videos and comments about this. That's why before he said anything, we were gonna do the show. I remember he's saying something about it. I just saw somebody put something about it like an hour ago, and I'm like, here we go. It's bullshit after bullshit. Would the elite do that? Yeah, I could see he's got a point on that. I could see them doing that. The elite could do a lot of crazy things. Like, I think they're bringing back mammoths so they can eat them too. Maybe not mermaids, but I wouldn't put it. They're going to charge a lot of money if they make mammoths, and I think they're going to breed them to the point where you can hunt them. And most people, we used to eat mammoths, so that's where the reason they pretty much got extinct. So we destroy everything. Some things didn't know because of the Ice Age end and stuff like that, but I have to agree with him. It sounds like here we go with another TikTok bullshit story about the Illuminati. And that's what it is now. It's the Illuminati party, and they were eating pieces of mermaid. If you eat it, you'll never want to eat anything else. It's delicious. I've heard that. And now it's the Illuminati. So that's why I'm saying I'm already laughing about this, because it's just, there's so many things. Like, what was the other one I saw? It was like the fairy, and it looked like a dried up like cockroach or something. The lady was trying to say it was a fucking fairy. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. These people are stupid. And it was just, I was laughing. I'm like, it ain't no fucking fairy. And I'm like, this is the shit that goes on TikTok. And this is why we're doing the show right now. We've done a show a while ago about mermaids, and it was a pretty good series show we did. If you guys want to check it out, I think it was like 6-7 years ago when we did that one. But now we're doing another one because they're saying that they're eating them now. The elite. I mean, Vladimir Putin said that the queen is a reptilian and eats human flesh. You know, and a lot of people don't. This is before people hated Victor or Vladimir, not Vladimir Putin. Now everybody hates him, so everybody would want to hear anything bad about him. But he said this, and he said it multiple times. One thing I will say, like, I don't think he would make something up like that. It's just, but that's human. That's not mermaids. This is another thing. So is mermaids real? Are we really in a war that we don't even know about? Maybe like Lord of the Rings, he said there was a little bit of truth to that. So what do you mean, what a little bit of truth? Did elves, goblins, all these giants and stuff really existed, and that's why we have the stories about them? Because we have stories about them for years, thousands of years. Even back in the Knights of the Round Table, they talked about dragons and stuff like that. We had dinosaurs; they were real. To say that dinosaurs didn't exist is that's another one. There's people who actually believe dinosaurs. We made those bones. We put those together and we made them out of plaster. This is where people irritate me so damn much. Why? The problem is he will tell you to your face, just like the flat Earth theory. He knows it's not. He knows that dinosaur bones exist, and they did exist at one time, and those are real bones. Most of them. Some of them are cast. They do cast on some of them. They're pretty beat up, so they can just make a model out of the whole bone. You know, most people don't realize they're just cast, most of them. And except, you know, unless they get a full one, then they'll put that one up. But most of the time they cast them. He knows that they existed. Dinosaurs did exist. Werewolves, I believe, exist. They talk about it in St. Peter's, that there were stories about werewolves. That when they came here, they saw werewolves in America and in Ireland. Are they werewolves what we think of? Are they shapeshifters? Do they just have powers to do this? Are they humans that can change back and forth? Kind of like what's the other ones I don't like talking about? The native one, James.
Skinwalkers.
Yeah, the skinwalkers. Yeah, the skinwalkers pretty much similar, but you like when somebody told me, yeah, I know how to deal with skinwalkers, and I'm like, I'm just gonna let you think you can do whatever you want. And this is why I don't like some of these shows, because she said I saw it on TV. And Baggins is one of the names coming up. So that's, again, and not surprised, this is why we don't like doing ghost hunting anymore. Because people think they know everything. I'm going to tell you this. If somebody's going to come out and go to a TikTok name, and that TikTok name's stupid enough to go put this shit out, they would be both, I'm sorry to tell you this, just so you know, they'd be gone. This wouldn't even have came out. This is why I'm just like, look at the guy who was talking about the giants in Mexico, I think it was in Canada, and he disappeared. They were following him. They told him to stop talking about this shit, and he didn't listen. This is why I don't believe that. Now, with the family that they had the aliens in the backyard of Vegas, no one talks about them anymore. They had to move. Those people got told to shut up. So did that cop. So people, they don't want you knowing anything. That's why I'm sitting there like, yeah, this guy's dumb for going out and even saying this shit, because they're going to make him look bad down the line. You're going to see him get caught doing something that he probably wasn't really doing, and they're just going to catch him, and they're going to put it on this. I think they set people up, man. That's why you got to be very careful what you say. And that's why I'm being very careful what I'm saying, because these kind of people, it might be something that it's not true, but it may be. And think about it, we're talking about it. Now, we're not the only ones talking about it. Everybody in the world is, so it's not a big deal anymore. I think if that's the truth, I don't think we would see this guy anymore. They would have got to him somehow. They would have got to him somehow. They would have took care of this influencer. Well, I can't say the word. Can't say the word. The YouTuber, and took care of him too. He wouldn't be doing the show no more. I'll tell you how deep they are. The guy was following predators, and he messed with the wrong. I don't know if you've seen it. He caught one of these producers though in Hollywood talking to teenager. But you know what happened, right? He ended up paying off one of the guys in his show and screwed him over. And then they had guys sending what do they call those, drones. There's some people you just, and like they're going after him now. Like you got to be careful what you're messing with. These people have a lot of money, and I don't think that's true with the mermaid. I think that's all bullshit, but I would be very careful even lying about that. There's some things you don't talk about. Some demons don't care like others do. We'll leave it at that. And some are deeper than others. Some want more than others. So when you play with the devil's fire, remember, something might bite you and burn you back. And you may not want to get involved. Even knowing about this is kind of like, I don't like talking about it, because it is true. Hollywood does have a dark side. I do know some people, but I'm not going to bring it up. But I don't know if it would go to that extent where mermaids and stuff. Now, human flesh is a different story, but we don't need to talk about that, because again, that gets into a rabbit hole we don't need to go. And that's why I try to tell people do their rituals in the way they believe differently. We can go into this. Like, some people take it to extreme, just like with every religion. There's some people just think they should, like the guy killed Jeffrey Dahmer. He said God told him to kill Jeffrey Dahmer. And that other guy, but then come to find out he just wanted to kill that guy because I guess he killed his family or something, but no one cared, but he planned to kill Jeffrey Dahmer, and he made it and said God told him to do it. If you've seen the TV show, they said that was all bullshit. But that's what I'm saying. Anybody can take their religion too far. Jeffrey Dahmer originally was into Satanism, and eat people. Then he went to believing in God. I have my opinions on that, because there's some people said he just did that to try to get out of prison early. But I don't know. You know what? I don't know how that works. There's some of those questions I'm like, I don't know how you could ever forgive somebody for that. If I was the parents, and this is why I don't like bringing it up, because I know a lot of people are affected by this issue, that I see your point of view where it gets glorified, but this is the kind of people you're dealing with. They do stuff like this. And the mermaid thing would not, if it was mermaids were real, I wouldn't doubt it. They'd probably eat other things. If mermaids are real and they're not just eating them, there's probably other unicorns. The unicorns are supposed to be real. They're eating them too. Maybe they get maybe killing these things have some kind of ability that makes you immortal. Did you ever think about that? Maybe that's why they eat the mermaids live longer, and that's why they don't age or something. Maybe there's something in the blood or the meat that keeps them people healthy. Maybe that's what, or maybe they're not even human. The reason they do it, or maybe they really are reptilians, and I'm just going by the other theory that this is another thing they like to eat. He pretty much only went a little bit with this. We could go farther. I don't believe it. I'm just, I should go on TikTok and do this, huh? We get 10 million views on that. How dumb that would be, bro. Oh yeah, by the way, the reptilians are eating mermaids. I bet you $100 it would get. That's so crazy. And then we could do a show that's amazing and 200 views. That's just how dumb it is. That's how dumb it works. But me personally, I think the fucking story is bullshit. I think now it's getting like wildfire on TikTok, and people are talking about it. And I got into other things because there's all these kind of different conspiracies. It always sets in the same thing. Hollywood is a very dark place. I've been there numerous times, especially West Hollywood. There's a goth club I go out to, Bar Sinister, giving it a shout out. It's famous. It's been open since 1990 or 98, 99. But that's when it was blown up with the Matrix and stuff like that. And goth was really blown up. And now it is what it is, but I still like going down there. But Hollywood, you can feel the lost souls down there. There's a lot of people who are just ghosts. This place, people thought they were going to become something, and they never did. And you can feel it. You can feel the energy there. And just so people know, it's like you can feel the sorrows there. I've always been able to do that anyway. And I've always, for some reason, like Hollywood. Maybe I was born in a certain era in Hollywood. That's probably why. But it just feels like home. It's weird. I've never lived there. When I first went there, I was like, it feels like home. It's weird. I must have been there a long time ago in another life. But I go a lot down there, and Hollywood's just dark altogether. There's a lot of lost souls, like I was saying. A lot of people who got on drugs, thought they were going to be rock stars, movie stars, or sports stars. And they get caught up in Hollywood's dark underbelly. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. Drugs, gangs, prostitution, cults. It's not just Hollywood. It's there, whatever you want on Hollywood elites, on Illuminati. There's also other cults, vampire cults. There's all kinds of things out there, man. And especially in Hollywood, you'll find it there. There's all kinds of shit going there, especially LA altogether. But yeah. If you're gonna do this kind of stuff and you're gonna get if you want to be famous, I'm gonna give you one word of advice: stay away from that. Once you get in, you can never get out. Trust me. People say they got out. They'll never have a normal life ever again. That's all I'm going to say, and I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get in too much trouble because what we're talking about. But that being said, I do agree with James. It's a bullshit story. It's no surprise. But there you go, James.
The one thing you didn't want to talk about with the human flesh, that's actually the show that we did many years ago, and the channel was going great at that time, man. It was kicking ass, and we were doing really well, getting shit tons of views. Everything was wonderful, and that show changed everything. Literally, after I put that show up, we lost thousands of subscribers like that. And I had people messaging me here and there, and what the hell's going on, man? We're not subscribed to your channel anymore. Did you kick us off? And I'm like, I don't even think I can do that. Like, I don't even think that's the thing I can do. I didn't do anything. I said, just resubscribe, I guess. I don't know what's happening. And then they would message me and say, I resubscribe, and then I come back in and I'm unsubscribed again. So YouTube, just axed a bunch of our people and shadow banned the channel to where our stuff just doesn't get out anymore, and it's been years, and we're starting to build back. We're around 7,000 subscribers, just under that now. But it's a lot less than it used to be, and it's weird because you go from like 10,000 views when you put up a show to 10 views when you put up a show, like overnight. And that's not an accident. Like that, there's nothing that we could have said or did that was that bad that people were like, 10,000 people said, yeah, we're not watching you anymore. There's no way, So his point is well taken. You got to be careful when you talk about some of this kind of stuff, because although this story I think is BS, there are people that are doing some shady stuff, and they're very, very powerful people. And if you kind of touch on something that is true, if you're telling stuff they don't want you to tell, there are definitely consequences to that, you know. And we were on their radar because we've both been approached to join up with the Illuminati and all that. We both had people contact us about it, and I turned them down. I think old boy turned them down as well. So they definitely knew who we were, and they were paying attention, you know. And then when I did that show, like everything changed. I mean, everything completely into the shitter for a while. It's starting to get better now. It's been a couple years, and I guess the idea was nuke the channel, shadow ban the hell out of it, so nobody gets to see it, and it would just make us quit. I think that was the idea. That if we're not getting any views, we're not making any money, then we'll quit, you know. But thing is, I don't do this for money. Like I don't give a damn about money. I'm good. I have what I need. I don't need anything else. I do this because I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy talking about the stuff that we talk about, and it's fun, you know. But most people probably would have quit long, long ago because it gets to a point, and it does get frustrating sometimes. We're putting up shows that are objectively awesome shows, and we've had some shows that were just mind-blowingly good. And we've been told that by a lot of people. But then you put them up, and it's like pulling teeth trying to get any decent number of views. But yet some idiot goes on and does some stupid thing that doesn't even make sense, talks about skinwalkers, and they don't have any of the right information. They sound like idiots because they don't know anything they're talking about. It's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. 10 million views. Makes no sense to me. I don't get it. I never will understand YouTube. I don't understand how this thing works to where people can get those kind of views for doing nonsense. And they're acting like they're doing something real. You know what I mean? They're sitting there talking about paranormal stuff and supernatural stuff as if they're experts, as if they know what they're talking about. But they're completely wrong on everything they're talking about, to the point where it's laughable. But those are the people that get millions and millions and millions of views. When you have people that have studied this stuff their whole life and are putting on great shows, don't get the views. Now, like I said, we did used to get a lot more views than we do now. I believe with all my heart that it's because we got shadow banned, and that's why. And the people that still watch the show have to kind of look for the show to find it. You know what I mean? I don't think it's as easy to get. I mean, it used to be we were on the front page of YouTube many times, to where when you bring up your YouTube, you'd see us, and a lot of people that told me that they saw us on their front page of YouTube haven't seen us since, So there's definitely something going on with it. It's kind of bullshit. The problem is there's no real alternative. I mean, you got Spotify, but Spotify's the same thing, basically. But the problem with Spotify is people aren't watching videos on Spotify. Really, they're just listening to the sounds. We put the shows on Spotify, so you can listen to them there. But and it's starting to do something, but it's it's still slow. It's in the very beginning of Spotify as far as what we've put up. We haven't been on very long. Then you got Rumble, which Rumble's awesome. I love Rumble, but it just doesn't have the traffic that YouTube has. And that's the problem. So you're kind of stuck with doing YouTube and putting up with their censorship and their bullshit and having to deal with that, because that's where everybody is, unfortunately. But I mean, I agree that there are some things that it probably wouldn't be a great idea to talk about fully. You know what I mean? And there's times when we talk about certain subjects, and I will say, okay, that's all I can really say about it. Because I have had to sign NDAs in the past, So when you are dealing with some of these subjects, you have to understand anybody that's coming on here telling you, "Oh, I worked in this and I'm telling you all these secrets," they're full of shit. Because you just don't do that. If you're somebody that knows stuff, then you have signed NDAs. You don't just know things and then go out and talk about them. That's not the way it works. When you're working on top secret projects or you're working stuff like that with the government, or if you're dealing with like the elite Illuminati people, you're not going to go out there telling their damn secrets without some kind of punishment. That just doesn't happen. So whenever you have these people that pop up and say, "Yeah, I know this guy," and they're telling these fantastic tales, just like this mermaid party tale, it's almost always bullshit. But look what happened. She went and spouted some nonsense that anybody who actually knows the lore on mermaids can tell within 2 seconds it's bullshit. Within 2 seconds, you start listening, you're like, yeah, that's bullshit. There's no way that's true. It doesn't match anything about mermaids that we've heard. None of the lore says that you can capture them. None of the lore says that they're weak or easy to they don't even talk about a weakness. So right away, if you know anything about it, you're like, yeah, this is bullshit. But millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of views. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody else is putting up videos about it, hoping to ride that wave and get some views. We won't. We're not going to get a lot of views on this video, I guarantee it. But we're the only ones that are going to tell you the truth on it. This is the show that's actually studied the lore. This is the show that actually knows what they're talking about. And we'll tell you the truth. And the truth is, it's probably bullshit. But that's not going to get a lot of attention, is it? Now, if I put some fantastic attention-grabbing title on it, like elites having mermaid parties, proven true, or some bullshit like that, then of course people will click on it, but then you're lying because that's not what happened. That's not the truth. The whole thing is screwy how it works, man. You got influencers out there who are being paid to put out certain materials and put out certain messages and propaganda for not only politicians but other governments, all kinds of shit. It's all crooked as fuck, and this should be a place where you can go and you can speak freely, and you should be able to have your freedom of speech and be able to say your opinion on things without having to be punished. It's ridiculous. It's like if you say something they don't like, they take away your money. They nuke your channel. They take away all your subscribers. They make sure nobody sees your material. And the sad thing is, a lot of times when that happens, the stuff that you're saying gets proven true later, but you're still in trouble for it. And that doesn't give you your subscribers back. That doesn't fix your channel. It's just broken now. We're going to keep plugging away and working at it and trying to build it back, but will it ever get there? I don't know. It gets discouraging because there's a lot of work that goes into this. This isn't just sitting down with a cell phone and turning it on while I'm sitting in the car and just blabbing some bullshit to you like a lot of these people do, and then just uploading it without even editing it or anything, and you got shitty quality, you got shitty information. The whole thing's a joke. This is a lot of work goes into this. Hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work per show. So it gets discouraging when you upload it and nothing happens. That really sucks. I know why. You know what I mean? I'm not surprised. But it doesn't make it fun to do. I mean, it's discouraging as shit. And sometimes you think, why the fuck am I even doing this anymore? Why am I wasting so much time doing all of this? For what? If nobody's even listening, what the fuck's the point? You know what I mean? And I guess that is the point. That's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to quit and give up. Then they win. But there's a case to be made that maybe they already won. The show still gets out on the radio. This show does, Staring. But anything that's put on YouTube doesn't go very far. It doesn't do very well. Spotify is okay. I think Spotify will be better once it gets more well known on Spotify. We just started there. So I think that'll end up being something decent at some point. The show does okay on Rumble, but they just don't have the audience on Rumble that YouTube has, like I said before. So anyway, enough of my bitch fest. I think the story's bullshit. I don't think it's real. I don't put it past the elites if they wanted to try to do something like this, but I don't think that this is a real thing. I think it's something that some idiot on TikTok made up in order to get more views. Same as we've heard a million fucking times. You know, basically, whenever you watch a video on TikTok and you hear that spooky music, that bullshit that plays in the background, and then they start talking about some story about something that happened, it's bullshit. If you're telling some real shit, you don't have to put spooky music behind it. You don't have to try to make people believe it. Whenever there's way too many vague things in a story and no details whatsoever that are verifiable and no evidence presented, no proof of anything, there's nothing you can go look up that'll show that the person's telling the truth. It's almost always bullshit. You know, uh, that's just the way it is. And it's funny that somehow the guys who talk about demons and monsters and vampires and werewolves and mermaids and all these things, right? Those guys are now the ones that come on here every week almost talking about some bullshit that's going on in the paranormal community and calling it out for bullshit. How the fuck did we become those guys? That doesn't make any sense. We were the ones that were talking about all this stuff in the beginning, talking about the lore and, oh man, this is the lore on this is the lore on that. Here's the actual werewolf witch trials that happened. Those are pretty spectacular. I did a show on those. Check out this information I found in the archives. This is really interesting. We were the guys that were always talking about this stuff, making people believe, hey, it might be real. But now it's gotten to the point where it's so ridiculous and people are just blatantly lying all the time. That, I mean, we have kept one thing constant through all 8 or 9 or however many fucking years we've been doing this. We've kept one thing constant, and that's we always tell you the truth. We never blow smoke up your ass. We never lie to you. We tell you the truth. And unfortunately, it's gotten so ridiculous and so silly and stupid in the paranormal field now that almost every time we do a show about the paranormal, it's calling out some dumb bullshit that it's not real. And that's sad. That's a disservice because when you put out that much nonsense into the paranormal field and the paranormal community as a whole, puts out this much dumb shit all the time, you lose credibility. It goes from being an actual science where you're trying to prove the existence of life after death, you're trying to prove the existence of supernatural things, and you're going about it in a fact-based, evidentiary-based way where you're doing science trying to prove that these things exist. It goes from that to spooky campfire stories that everybody knows are bullshit. And you just lose credibility. Nobody believes you anymore. All that's happening is you're making the entire paranormal field look stupid. And the average people are going, yeah, those guys, those paranormal people, they're a bunch of idiots. You hear them when they're talking about skinwalkers and talking about this, that, and the other thing. It's nonsense. And that's their fault. And what happens is the paranormal field will get big. It'll get popular. People will be interested in it. So you'll have a massive group of people that descend upon it because they're interested in it. And those people don't know anything. And those people are full of shit almost always. But they put out a massive amount of content. And then what happens is they say, well, then there's an audience for this. People like this. So then all these influencer idiots start making videos about it. So then you have all of these people that are making all of these dumb videos that don't have anything to do with the truth. They're just complete and utter fabrications. And then the actual paranormal investigators, the real people that are actually doing the work and trying to solve these things and answer these questions, are overshadowed by all of these idiots. And everybody looks stupid. And then eventually people just turn their back on it because they say, this is ridiculous. I'm not watching this crap anymore. So then the paranormal field is a laughingstock again. And then it'll build up over time. The real people that are actually doing the work are still going to be involved. They're still going to be doing the work. Eventually somebody will come up with some kind of discovery or some kind of bit of evidence that is so intriguing that it brings people back and people get interested again. And then the cycle repeats. People get interested, you get a bigger audience. That draws the idiots. The idiots tell lies and make up bullshit in order to get views or to get money or whatever it is. Then it looks like a joke again. Everybody walks away. It just keeps, it's a cycle. It keeps repeating over and over and over again. And it's kind of reached critical mass again to where it's getting ready to totally implode on itself and everybody's going to walk away from it because it's a joke anymore. You know, the paranormal field is a fucking joke. And these idiots have made it that way. You know, so unfortunately, now we're the guys that come on here and tell you that this is bullshit and that is bullshit because there's way too much bullshit out there. You know, but we're also the guys that'll tell you some true shit if we see it. You know, I love to see real stuff. You know, we still are involved in all that. So whenever we come across an actual thing that's really happening, we're really excited about it. You know, and we'll do shows about it and talk about it. But there's a lot of these shows now too that it's just some idiot on TikTok talking shit who doesn't know anything, making up some nonsense. Then you got a bunch of feeble-minded morons who believe it because they don't know anything. They've never studied any of this stuff. And did you hear? The Earth's fucking flat and it's got a fucking dome over it. And there's no way anybody goes into space because you bounce off the fucking dome. I heard that about that Katy Perry bullshit that just happened. Why didn't you know that wasn't real? Because if they were in space, why didn't they have their space helmets on? I literally heard a bunch of fucking people making that point online, on TikTok, on YouTube, all over the place. They were making that point as if it was some factual thing, as if it was something that made logical sense. And people would be like, oh my God, they cracked it. I didn't understand that before. They were in space, they should have had their space helmets on. Oh man, we caught them. It's fucking ridiculous. You don't put your fucking helmet on unless you're outside of the craft. Inside the craft, you have atmosphere. You have air. You don't need a fucking helmet. You brain dead moron. But these are the same people that are going to tell you that the Earth is inside of a snow globe like dome, and that's why we can't go out. And to fucking make sure God don't shake it, it might snow. And oh my God, watch out, the Earth is flat. It's just a big fucking pizza pan. These people are stupid, man. And anybody that listens to this shit and actually takes it seriously, you're fucking stupid too. Come on, man. In the words of the illustrious Joe Biden, come on, man. That's bullshit and you know it. You know the fucking Earth ain't flat, man. You know we don't live inside of a snow globe. What the fuck is wrong with you? You learned that shit in first grade, bro. But that's the dumb shit we deal with now in this field. And it's a fucking riot anymore, bro. I laugh my ass off every day looking at this shit. And it's sad. I know some of these people, dude. One of my guilty pleasures, I love to go into the flat Earth groups and shit like that and just read what they're saying because they're fucking lunatics. And I just love seeing the nonsense. And I actually have people that I know in real life that have bought into this bullshit and believe it now. You know, and it's like, how the fuck are you that stupid that you believe that the Earth is flat, but every other thing in the entire fucking universe is round? That doesn't make any sense. Every moon, every planet, everything is circular. Except for Earth, that's flat, right? That doesn't make any sense. Why would that be? How do you explain that? You can't. They don't have any actual evidence, any actual proof. They just talk shit. You know what I mean? And that's all this mermaid party shit is. It's the same thing. It's just dipshits talking shit. You know, so that's my view on it. Maybe a little boy has a different view. I'm always outspoken. I always tell you exactly how I feel. But I'm going to throw over to old boy, let him do his shout outs, and we'll wrap up. Go ahead, brother.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It was different. And yeah, we're going to say what we're going to say. That's why we're not, honestly, be honest with you, they are watching for us to be doing TV shows. They really are. I'm not allowed to say anything else other than that. We are talking to some of the biggest names in the industry. And it could happen. I don't know if he's going to do it anymore because he's fed up with it. But if they give him a good deal and we get what we want, that is the most extreme places in the world, then we'll do it. That's what I want. That's all I take is extreme shit. I don't fuck around. Like, these people don't get it. Like, we've proven it to them. We've done it in front of the biggest names that some of our guys have walked into places they wouldn't go in. I'd go in there and like it's nothing. But again, I absorbed a lot of negativity. I'm different. James kind of does too. But that being said, just remember, we don't lie to you. We try to get you the truth, and if we're wrong, we'll admit to it. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the show on Staring into the Abyss on ParaX Radio every Sunday nights at 12 a.m. Eastern, 9 Pacific. The Best of Show, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. If you guys want to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, James Hersey's YouTube page, just subscribe. Follow us on Spotify, Staring into the Abyss / We're Screwed and We're Screwed. He's changed it now, so you guys can both find it. It's easier now. We've made it easier for people. We also have a merchandise store where you can get shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. That being said, if you notice, I've lost about 23 pounds in about 3 months. Around that, almost. But, and I'm not chubby like I was a couple months ago. I went from 243.5 to about 225, 220, something like that. Lower than that. I haven't. Last time it was like 227.5, and I think I weighed myself the other day and it was 225. So actually, it's not 23 pounds. It would be 18.5. 19 pounds. 23 pounds. 19. About 19 pounds. I'm sorry, guys. My numbers were off, but I've lost almost 19 pounds, around 19 pounds, and almost 3 months. So that being said, I feel great. I don't drink diet soda no more. I don't drink anything other than tea and water. Sometimes I'll have a Celsius, but I'm even going to cut those out. I barely eat any bread. I had all carnivore today. That's what I did. Ate a lot of meat, and I feel great. I've got a lot of energy. I'm fine. If you notice, I'm actually like hyped up today. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the show. Misfits, Sugleys, Monster Livers, and Demon Hunters. We fucking love you and have a good night.
Yeah, it's amazing how doing the carnivore diet, it changes everything. I mean, it makes you feel amazing. You know, everybody knows about my journey. I've been very public about it on the channel, about how I had a health scare and all the doctors told me plant-based, go vegan, or take all this medicine that has all this crazy ass side effects. And I didn't want to take all the medicine, so I changed my diet and I went vegan for a year. Now I grew up eating, cheesesteaks and pizza and burgers and hot dogs and a lot of deer meat and shit like that. All the normal stuff a redneck eats. And I never had that many issues. I was always good to go. And then I went vegan. And at first, the first month or two, I felt amazing because I was switching from all the junk I ate, like the junk food, right? Fast food, snack cakes, ice cream, cake, that kind of shit. Transferring from that to just whole plant foods, right? So I felt really, really good at first. But I spent an entire year as a vegan. And by the end of that year, I couldn't even barely get out of bed in the morning. I was so exhausted all the time. I had no energy. I was getting sicker. My face was just all breaking out. It was horrible. I was not doing well, and my numbers sucked. On all my blood tests and stuff. My cholesterol had gone down. That was the concern. But everything else was going to hell. You know what I mean? I was not doing well at all. And I decided I'm going to go do some real research on this and find out, because if this is the healthiest diet in the world, why am I not healthy? Right? If this is what we're supposed to eat, why is it poisoning me? Why am I not doing well on this? I should be healthy and amazing, right? I should feel great, but I don't. I feel like dog shit. What the fuck's going on? So I went and did a lot of research on my own, and all the real science shows that carnivore is the way to go. That's what we ought to be. And I'll tell you, since I've been carnivore now for about 6 months, a little bit more, after my vegan journey, and I feel absolutely amazing. I don't have to take supplements anymore. I don't have to take all the bullshit I had to take when I was a vegan to try to stay alive. Meat, eggs, cheese, that kind of stuff is everything I need, and I do very, very well on it. I don't have any real issues. Now, you got to get fat adapted. That's the thing. Once you go from burning glucose for energy to burning fat for energy, once your body makes that transition and you get used to that, man, you feel good. I'm piling on muscle again. I'm back well under 300 again, right? And you might think that's big, right? That's a heavy person, a fat guy. But keep in mind, I'm a little over 6'5". Okay, so I'm not. You can see me. I'm not a fat guy, right? I'm just a big guy, a big muscular guy. I'm not like a fat ass. I never have been a fat ass really, but I did have like a belly going on when I right before I became a vegan and while I was a vegan. I had that big middle-aged man gut happening, and that's pretty much gone almost all the way away. I don't know if you guys can see. I disappeared. What the hell? But see, there's no gut there anymore. I don't know if you could see that with the shit because the camera kept fucking up, but it's pretty much flat now. And I was averaging right around 300, 305 pretty consistently for a long time. And I'm now bouncing around between the 270, 280 range, and I don't have the gut anymore. And I'm really, really solid muscle now, which is really, really good. My numbers are all great. My blood tests are amazing. Everything's excellent, and I feel freaking good. Maybe one day we'll do a really good show on the carnivore diet and really get into the science on it and all that kind of stuff. I think that needs to be. We almost did it on We're Screwed, but I think that needs to be probably a staring episode because we're going to need a good hour to go through everything to really break that down for everybody. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to do it half-assed if we're going to do it. But anyway, that's a whole other show. It has nothing to do with mermaid parties. Although, if mermaid eating is real, they would probably go under the carnivore diet as well. Because technically they are meat, right? You're eating living creatures. So I guess that would be carnivore. It would be fine to eat on the carnivore diet. So anyway, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let us know down in the comments section what you guys think. As always, up to you to make up your own mind, and we will catch you on the next one. Till I speak to you again, love many, trust few, do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
In order for the light to shine so brightly, the darkness must be present. Tune in every Monday at 10 o'clock for Dark Sun Rising on the ParaX Radio Network.
Hey, this is Lee.
And this is Michelle.
And this is Dustin from the Dead Zone.
Your source for everything paranormal, ParaX.